Hello. Our story begins inside of a villa on the far side of Naboo. Anakin and Padme were out on a mission together. Padme wasn't thrilled to be here, and Anakin was doing a mission on behalf of the Jedi. Initially, he believed that he'd be enthralled to be around Padme again. He remembered her fondly from his childhood. However, as he had grown up, he didn't realize how much he romanticized the idea of her. During their interactions with each other, he was able to fully appreciate her for who she was. However, what loomed on his mind was whether or not there was a sustainable relationship with her. The tragedy is, there was likely room for a potential relationship to form, but as they got themselves comfortable at the villa, they separated. Anakin walked to the edge of the beautifully crafted building and looked out over the water. The thoughts on his mind were very scattered. He could technically make this work, theoretically, if he wanted, but he wasn't even sure if it was something he longed for. The idea of being in a relationship always sounded nice to him, but the idea of being in a relationship as a Jedi just seemed too stressful. This was an additional stress that he didn't need. Even without the war starting yet, he wanted to focus on creating the life he believed he could have inside the Order. This wasn't blindly being loyal to the Jedi, but Anakin was adamant to Obi-Wan on numerous occasions that he wished to become a Jedi Master. It was hard in this day and age to have an outstanding show of Jedi excellence, so Skywalker would have to rely on teaching a student to the rank of Jedi Knight and hope for the best from that point forward. Though the only issue is, he didn't want a student yet, and all of that leading him back to his feelings in this moment. In essence, it would be nice, but he had since realized he romanticized something from his past. As people grow and people change, what they want becomes important factors over who should stay and who should go. The lake was beautiful when he thought about his own feelings. Something within him was pulling him towards her, but the other half of him was pulling him away. For Anakin, it wasn't that there was something wrong with Padme, but more or less, he needed to focus on his own life. He couldn't be stressing out over a secret relationship. Also, on another note, why was the idea of a relationship rushing his mind? They'd only been around each other for what, 36 hours? There was no need to jump to said conclusions. Anakin fell into the Force. He wanted to make sure he had the answers in his own mind, before anything came up at least. Padme was interacting with her family, her sisters teasing her about having brought a boy home. Padme's family was extremely accepting of Anakin, especially Padme's father, but she tried not to think anything of it. When Padme's sister teased her about the way she looked at Anakin, she denied. However, Padme herself was developing feelings for Skywalker. He had been awkward and unorthodox and maybe a bit childish, but he had a sense of humor that melded well with her. The next day would be the defining reason for the two of them to ever consider fancying the other. They'd go out for a picnic in the fields near the mountains. It was a beautiful landscape and made for the perfect hangout location. However, all things considered, it didn't feel like two friends hanging around each other. Anakin could feel it too. There was a tension that was rising between the two of them. They had a chemistry, and under everything that had been said or done in the past few days, it was finally becoming more apparent than ever before. There was a connection and they could capitalize off it, if they wanted to. They talked and rolled in the fields for a couple of hours, having fun until they returned to the villa. They'd eat dinner alone with each other, and then from there, they'd have more time alone by the fireplace. It would be here that they would flesh out their emotions with each other. Anakin had plenty of time to really understand what he wanted to get out of this conversation, and Padme thought she did. But as it began, she realized that she wasn't prepared. Anakin very quickly and adamantly said that he enjoyed her company, and that he had thought about her for the longest time, but he simply couldn't be with her. They couldn't do this. Padme looked at Anakin with confusion as he fleshed out his statement, she giving him the room he needed to say whatever he needed to say. He expressed that he did genuinely care about her, but that care couldn't ever go beyond what could be considered friends. It wouldn't be right to either of them, and he wasn't willing to throw away everything that he was for something that had only a couple days worth of breathing. This dynamic was so young and fractured. If the flame was bright, there was no telling if it would be a slow burn or if it flashed up in a flame of glory and then disappear under the smoke of disappointment. Truthfully, he wasn't trying to find out. He was hopeful about returning to the temple and becoming a Jedi Knight. She, on the other hand, was a senator. She had an entire career in front of her. She could have a shot at becoming Chancellor or having a family. She wouldn't want a family that couldn't technically exist, if she even wanted one. Neither of them could legitimately do this to themselves. Padme was very caught off guard by this. She didn't know how to handle the words he said, because despite them not being rude or aggressive, they genuinely hurt her. She didn't want to let go of this potential relationship, and now she would have to. Not for nothing, it was always easier being on the giving side of denial. On the receiving side of things, it pretty much did the opposite of what Anakin wanted. As he separated himself from her, it created a dynamic where she might even consider chasing the unattainable, because as a politician she quickly mustered together a response and agreed with her solution. In the back of her mind, she realized that she would have to potentially go out of her way to make this thing work. As their conversation ended, Anakin went to bed and Padme began scheming. It was a direct mirror to what Anakin had been doing for the last 10 years of his life inside the temple. The romanticization of someone who didn't want him made the allure or the chase or the thrill all the more enticing. Now that the roles were reversed, she was feeling the desire to chase him because he was unavailable. During the night, Anakin could be heard having a nightmare, but she decided that even though she wanted to go to him, it'd be a breach of privacy. In the morning, she would try and offer up consolation, but there wasn't much she could do. All that would follow is a trip from Naboo to Tatooine, and then a trip from Tatooine to Geonosis. Padme was trying to help her friend Obi-Wan, but at the same time, trying to woo Anakin, neither of which working, because she and Anakin got captured before being brought out to a Geonosian arena where they'd fight alongside each other until the attack of the clones. As the Jedi and Senator chased down Dooku, Padme would be lost, but instead of throwing a temper over the situation, Anakin would remain calm and collected. Not as calm as he would like to be, but he was focusing on the right thing. That didn't do him any good. Anakin and Obi-Wan approached slowly. However, for whatever reason, Obi-Wan thought Dooku required a hearing aid, because Obi-Wan gave Anakin the plan right in front of Dooku. So, as Anakin and Obi-Wan moved in, Anakin slowly on the left, Dooku sliced and diced the Jedi. Dooku was so swift in his old age, and even though he was the eldest of his own lineage, both of those that came before him would be no match. Dooku cut through Obi-Wan's leg before thrusting his blade through Anakin's bicep. He never removed the limb either, but they were out of the fight now. Dooku even considered killing them in cold blood. Besides, that wasn't out of his range of character. But before he could, Yoda saved the day. Their defeat was troubling, but they tried their best. Yoda could at least appreciate that. However, with Yoda's arrival came a huge hug from Padme. Anakin was just as surprised as Obi-Wan and Yoda, who kind of just watched and moved on. Suppose they just chalked it up to they were more friendly than they were before the mission started, even though Obi-Wan told Windu beforehand that Anakin's judgment was clouded. Regardless, Anakin was quick to break the hug and move along. He would take Padme back to Naboo, and it would be his final part of the mission that he would express to her that all he wanted to do was set up boundaries. Just to be clear, they weren't to be touchy-touchy with each other, and that was how he felt about it. He didn't mind being friendly, but if she were to overstep the line again, he wouldn't want to be friends with her. This only fueled her obsession with him. Anakin, unaware of any of this happening, just moved on. Instead of becoming obsessive, the entire situation gave him a new perspective on his life and on his journey as a Jedi. After he left Naboo to return to Coruscant, Anakin went to his master. His mission with Padme helped Anakin realize something within himself. Due to the nature of Obi-Wan's request to the Council, he was surprised when Anakin's words would undo such a request. Kenobi believed Anakin was ready to be a knight at the age of 19, which was fair. He was considerably talented, and thanks to his maturity on Geonosis, he believed that Anakin would make a fine Jedi Knight as the Republic was thrown into a clone war. But instead of that, Anakin told Obi-Wan that he was apologetic for not taking his training seriously. His focus wasn't always on learning, and he could be arrogant. The reason Anakin believed this is because he knew that throughout his training he believed he was better than he was. Some of this was hyping himself up for potential bond with Padme, and the other part of it was just him blowing off Obi-Wan. His first solo mission helped him realize that he had more to learn, and some of this came from how forward Padme seemed to be towards him. He didn't expect it, and he rejected it. Actually, he ran from it. Obi-Wan was truthfully flabbergasted, but he accepted Anakin's request, and they would begin the Clone Wars together. A lot of this self-realization helped Anakin notice that he was always focusing on the wrong aspects of his life. Perhaps it was a fact that he romanticized someone for 10 years, only for him to realize that such thoughts weren't anything but idolizing someone who was obviously not the same person they would be after a 10-year gap from meeting each other. The other side of this coin potentially came from the fact that his mother had died. He did believe he needed to be stronger to save her, so instead of doing that on his own, he believed having help from Obi-Wan would be the best thing for him. Anakin and Obi-Wan talked about everything regarding Padme and Shmi, which elicited some stories from Obi-Wan. Some of these stories revolving around Obi-Wan's own personal struggles after Qui-Gon's death, expressing that he wanted to leave the Order and go to Mandalore to find the one he loved. While it was the inverse of Anakin's story, being that Obi-Wan considered finding the one he loved, it at least made Anakin feel better knowing that someone at least understood him and listened to him. The dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin was even stronger as a result of this, and despite the war heating up, Anakin realized he made the correct decision. He was no longer worried about Padme or thinking about her. It was the first time in his entire Jedi training when he could actually focus entirely on said training. He wasn't thinking about his mom or Padme, though the loss of his mother definitely ate away at him. But who else to be the perfect mentor for dealing with grief than Kenobi, who lost his master and was immediately left alone? So he helped Anakin with everything, regarding the loss of his mother that is. Anakin's singular focus on his Jedi training made him a stronger Jedi. He was able to be a stronger commander as he joined Obi-Wan inside the 212th Legion. Their work together would be legendary, and they'd be one of the most successful Jedi in the entire Grand Army of the Republic. But due to Obi-Wan leading as general, he was the most recognized Jedi for the general public, for his work to help the people of the galaxy. Because of Anakin's full focus on his training and the path of the Jedi, he was able to excel in ways he never believed were possible. On the flip side of this, Padme began to get obsessive over Anakin unlike she ever had anyone before. She adored him, and she latched onto the memories of the time they spent on Naboo. Truthfully, she was starting to feel like Anakin led her on, but she wasn't sure. She believed she deserved him and was entitled to him, and this belief drove her mad. She was obviously able to focus inside the Senate chambers and do her work, but the thought of him remained permanent inside her mind. The first few months of the war were stressful, but Obi-Wan and Anakin eased into it easily. Skywalker actually focusing on his training and becoming dedicated to his craft allowed him to flourish unlike ever before. He was growing exponentially. Due to his high ceiling, he could grow into a monster of a Force user. He'd be able to duel like Windu and wield the Force better than Yoda. For Anakin, he looked up to Obi-Wan because he was as powerful as Master Windu and as wise as Master Yoda in his own mind, so the thought that he could attain such mastery wasn't out of his control. It obviously was hard with the war going on, but Obi-Wan taught him how to focus and become a vessel of the Force, which is what Anakin did. His master was very wise, and it helped him really come into himself. As the war went on and the Jedi were able to cripple the Malevolence, a move made by Palpatine put Padme into a risky situation, one that involved Anakin and Obi-Wan having to board the super ship and save her. Even though Anakin and Padme weren't together or married, Palpatine still wanted her dead, because she was a powerful political rival, but his plan for her to smash into the Malevolence failed. When Skywalker and Kenobi saved her, the two Jedi were separated. As they were alone, she tried to thank him with an embrace, but he denied it once again, sensing that there was something else about her motives here. She was put off by this, but it only continued to further Padme's lust for him. However, when they reunited with Obi-Wan, everything was put to rest. Everything would go back to normal, but Anakin was concerned about Senator Amidala's near obsession with him, so he consulted a Jedi Master from the High Council, none other than Mace Windu himself. The two Jedi would speak for hours about the event, and Mace would inform him that Padme had been trying to get in contact with him, but she was acting rather erratic about the entire situation, so the Council denied her request. Anakin thanked Mace, and the Jedi Master nodded his head. Before they split, he congratulated Anakin on his achievements since the beginning of the Clone Wars. He had done so much in the way of improving himself. The Council was eager to see his career develop in the future. Mace was hinting at knighthood, and Anakin was thankful, but he asked if Mace really believed he was ready. The Jedi Master nodded his head again. There were obvious reasons for the Jedi to have discrepancies with Skywalker. He was literally the embodiment of Qui-Gon, which was based off the now radicalized Dooku. There was a reason for them to have some sort of concern regarding this behavior, but unlike Dooku, Anakin seemed to be like Qui-Gon, choosing the light and the Jedi because they were there. With Master Jin, there was never an alert to the dark side, there was only harmony. Anakin was a little more like Dooku, swinging to the dark in times of desperation, but the Council believed in Anakin. They were finally starting to trust him, which only encouraged their excitement in his progression as a Jedi. Knighthood would follow in the coming weeks, and after the events on Christophsis and Tath, Anakin would take on a new student, Ahsoka Tano. She'd be the perfect bond for Anakin. Skywalker never needed to have an emotional attachment, he just needed someone to fill in his family. He had Obi-Wan, who he considered his father figure, and now with Ahsoka, after some time, she'd fill the role of a little sister. For Anakin, it was building the dream family he always wanted, and now he had some of that in his hands. Despite how much he had progressed throughout the duration of the war, it still went by Palpatine's command. He had everything the way he wanted it, so he dictated the outcome of said war he had control over. Anakin was just another pawn on the board. However, his success and growth were all the more alluring to the Sith Lord. Though Sidious realized that to pull off the ultimate turn to the dark side, He needed Ahsoka gone, so he hired numerous bounty hunters across the galaxy to hunt Ahsoka down and kill her. If they couldn't do it on the spot, then she needed to be captured, and then he would deal with it himself in whatever way was needed. This was Sidious pushing for Skywalker to turn to the dark side as fast as he could. So, in the middle of a heated contest between the Republic and Separatists, a squad of bounty hunters would ambush Commander Dano and a couple of clone troopers, one of those clones being captured alongside the commander. Anakin noticed too late, and as he chased the bounty hunters, he was able to get a couple Republic vessels to track the ship using attachable trackers. The pirates went along the Hydian Way, which Anakin knew all about due to being born on Tatooine. He'd have Rex cover for him for the first time in the war, and actually go after Ahsoka, who was making her way to Navarro, as it seemed. The planet was untouched by the war, and it was established enough, not a thriving society, but there were people that lived there. Anakin traced the bounty hunters back to the planet and hid his ship away from the landing yards, to avoid detection. His only fear is that the magistrate would side with the bounty hunters over the Jedi, which would be valid, being that Navarro was in the Outer Rim territories. Regardless, using his Jedi robe, Anakin snuck into the city. It was sunset, so most of the population was preparing for rest. Skywalker moved quietly around the city, keeping an eye open for a student and using the Force as a guide forward. Anakin was learning an ability that he never realized he had, but through his intense training, he was able to open himself up to it. It was called Force psychometry. Anakin was able to learn about it because of Quinlan Vos, which was just a short interaction he had because of his time training under Kenobi during the war. Anakin accidentally triggered it on a mission, and Quinlan noticed that Anakin was able to use it. Most Jedi couldn't use the power. It was a natural gift. Some Jedi, like Anakin, were late bloomers to the power. It was entirely due to Anakin's dedication to his training that he realized he could use it. He still didn't have the hang of it yet, but he would get it. As he continued through the city, he felt a hand on his shoulder and turned around. It was a younger man wearing a cape and some vibrant colors. He asked the Jedi why he was here, and Anakin asked who he was. The man introduced himself as Greef Karga. Anakin said that he was looking for his Padawan. She was captured by some bounty hunters who brought her back to this planet. Greef told her that he would make a deal with him, and eager to find his Padawan Anakin very quickly told Greef that he would do whatever was needed. Karga asked that once he gave the location of the bounty hunters that Anakin not forget about Navarro. It wasn't a part of the Republic, but it could be. They certainly could use the resources. Anakin said that he wasn't a politician, and he couldn't do that, and Greef grabbed Anakin's arm and sincerely told him that the people were starving. They needed help, and their supply lines had been cut off by the Separatists in the capture of the Mid-Rim. If Anakin didn't help Navarro, they would continue to suffer. He then released his grip. Anakin told the magistrate that he would do whatever he could. With the location of the bounty hunters given, Skywalker would cut through the back of the building and sneak in through the supply room. As he walked through, he clocked a guard on guard duty and knocked him out on impact. Anakin continued through as the bounty hunters were talking to a character over a hologram. Anakin listened in as a deep, hypnotic voice continued talking, suggesting that he wanted the Jedi and the trooper executed. They would serve no use to him, especially out in Navarro. Anakin knew it was a Sith Lord, though he tried to figure out why the Sith would be interested in someone so close to him. It couldn't be someone he knew, could it? Anakin listened to the voice as close as he could, and then using the Force, he flipped a switch on the side of the hologram to record the entire session, or what was left. Once it was over, Anakin marched out, not using his lightsaber but throwing the bounty hunters into walls and through windows. He got clone trooper Jesse and Ahsoka, taking them out of the facility and calling for reinforcements. At the same time, he made a call with Padme, which he didn't want to do, and got her on a call with Magistrate Greef Karga. Upon his return to Coruscant with Greef in tow, he would go to the temple and speak before the council, showing them the hologram and telling them that he didn't know who it was, but if they could identify the voice, perhaps they'd be able to locate the Sith Lord. With Anakin's success in the last 24 hours, the Jedi were pleased with his work, but much more would need to be done. They at least knew what cities looked like now, thanks to Skywalker, and they had a voice to go off of. They just needed to figure out who was under the hood. Also, the council was well aware of Anakin's involvement with the integration of Navarro into the Republic. Greef was upgraded from magistrate to senator in the coming weeks, as he'd represent his people on the galactic arena, somewhere he actually thrived in. Karga was a brilliant man, but with such a small population inside Navarro, he never got a chance to really take advantage of his political intelligence. Anyways, Padme was eager to speak with Anakin, so she invited him over for dinner, and he reluctantly accepted because of what she did for him. She was very adamant that they speak all night, but he had things to do, and he wasn't really appreciative of her overbearing approach to being his friend. It was at this point he told her that they could no longer be friends. He was sorry for doing this, but This was becoming too much for him to deal with. At the same time, he was thankful for the meal, but it had to stop here. Once he left, he was proud of himself for putting his foot down, and it was here where Padme realized that perhaps she had gone too far. She let it get to her head, and now they're being separated indefinitely. Maybe she could get a grip on her emotions and do what she needed to do, which was serve in the Senate and be a good politician for not just her people, but for the people of the Republic. Anakin, before returning to the battlefront, would have a meeting with his friend Palpatine, and realized that there may have been a similarity between Palpatine's voice and the voice of the Sith Lord. He didn't want to just accuse Palpatine of being a Sith, but something didn't feel right. Skywalker returned to the temple and informed them of what he noticed, and told them that he didn't believe Palpatine was Sidious, but it was at least worthwhile informing them of this little tip. Palpatine was none the wiser, but he continued trying to put bounties on Ahsoka's head. Truthfully, Cad Bane was supposed to be the one to get the job done, but he got intercepted midway to the battle that Ahsoka and Anakin were at before Navarro. Cad was locked away in a maximum security prison on Coruscant, which is why Palpatine called for the closest bounty hunters to do it. To him, it just proved that if Cad was there, Ahsoka would have been dead and dealt with, and that he could focus on turning Skywalker. Anakin had other plans. He knew that there was something going on, and after having seen the attempt to capture Ahsoka and the obsession from the Sith Lord, he made his move. So to prevent anything from happening to his student, he began to limit her roles, which was a bit unfair to her, and truthfully a bit overprotective, but there were other attempts to capture her or kill her. There was a commando raid on the Resolute, which almost worked. There was an engagement with Asajj Ventress, which almost worked, another bounty hunter raid, which didn't work, and even a ground engagement with some pirates, which definitely didn't work. All of these were done at around the same time, within the span of a couple weeks. Sidious was hoping it would catch them off guard, but Anakin at this point was far too advanced in his skill to be swindled like that. Sidious was growing impatient, and so he decided that he'd have Dooku do it himself. Inversely, inside the Chancellor's office, the Jedi, who had been listening to recording of Sidious extensively, went to speak with Palpatine. As they were talking, there was a certain pronunciation or rhythmic pattern in his voice or sayings that were on the hologram. The Jedi instantaneously became suspicious of Palpatine, but verbal cues weren't enough to go after. Instead, they brought every council member back to Coruscant and put it to a vote. The only member not able to return was Obi-Wan, who was stuck deep in the mid-rim with rumors of a potential attack coming for an important world. He was able to partake in the council's decision via hologram. At the same time as the vote, in a heated clash over Fondor in the second year of the conflict, Anakin's fleet was ambushed by Dooku's fleet. The Republic already won the fleet battle, but Admiral Yularen had to reposition his fleet. Anakin and Ahsoka were already assisting on the landing procedure, but they had to break off, helping Yularen and the troops in the attack against the Sith. As it turns out, Anakin realized that Dooku was here, and demanded Ahsoka return to the Resolute. He was going to board Dooku's flagship. Ahsoka was genuinely getting tired of this. She was way too talented to be sidelined the way she was. But being the attacks were getting more strenuous than ever before, she had to accept what Anakin was saying because he was right. Anakin's boarding of Dooku's flagship would result in him sneaking around the vessel until finding the Count inside the bridge of the capital ship. Being that the flagship wasn't taking the brunt of the Republic counterattack, Anakin would be safe here, for now. Dooku commented on how foolish Anakin was to not bring his little pet, and Anakin engaged. Across the galaxy, the Council came to the decision to capture Palpatine and get to the bottom of whether or not he was a Sith Lord. The decision was majority favor, so they moved in, traversing across the city in a rush, hoping to find Palpatine and learn the truth. Simultaneously, another battle was taking place. General Grievous ambushed Obi-Wan across the galaxy. This was another move made by Sidious. He figured that since Anakin was being overprotective of his student, he needed to kill Kenobi. Who else but Grievous to do that? However, that would be a challenge. Kenobi was slippery, and he had Grievous's name plastered on his lightsaber. Back over Fondor, Anakin was using all of his talents and training of the past few years to his advantage. Dooku kept trying to pull him into using his anger, but Skywalker was acting as a true Jedi. It kept him in a weaker state of positioning due to Dooku's aggressive side, but Anakin was taking advantage of Dooku's age. The duelist pushed and pulled, maneuvering across the bridge, and then Magna Guards came in to help. Though, Anakin twisted his hand around, using the Force to crush the droids, and then lugging them at the Count, who aggressively moved in to strike Anakin. The counterattack failed, as Anakin throwing the battle droid surprised Dooku, allowing Anakin to slash forward, cutting off Dooku's forearm, and then in a swift double back, Anakin slashed Dooku across the chest, killing him instantaneously. Anakin turned to the droids with an arrogant grin as he made his way through them, cutting them apart as a little reward. After the little show of excellence was done, he piloted the ship towards a massive cruiser and turned the engines on and auto-fire on. The weapons opened fire on the supportive vessels, and then he left. The capital ship slammed into one of the supporting ships, creating a divide in the Separatist fleet. Anakin was able to escape and return to the Resolute, where he would find Ahsoka. She was annoyed, rightfully so, and the Master-Apprentice duo talked out their grievances with each other. As Yularen finished up the space battle, and Captain Rex alongside remarkable ARC troopers completed their mission on the ground. Inside of Palpatine's office, chaos erupted. Sidious panicked when the Jedi came in. He didn't even have a chance to expect it. He was just blindsided and tried his best to fight them off. With every single member in the council present, he was no match. He was cut down in a flash of glory. However, what would be hard to explain is why they did this, especially being that they didn't know Dooku was now dead. The fight between Jedi and Sidious was remarkable, and just as they were finishing it up, they received a call from Anakin confirming the death of Dooku and the fact that the war was one step closer to victory. However, Grievous's attack on Kenobi was overbearing for the Jedi General. The assault turned into a rout, and Obi-Wan's capital ship was crippled, allowing Grievous to start a boarding procedure. Obi-Wan and Grievous would engage in the hangar bay, clashing as the clones tried to hold off a Separatist attack. Kenobi's men were being overrun, which led to him having to retreat from his duel with Grievous. At this point, Obi-Wan hadn't fully figured out how to beat Grievous, having struggled against him over Saleucami, and the same being true here. His defense was perfect, it was just the fact he was struggling in certain aspects of their duels. No matter, with the assistance on the way, and the Republic capital ship dead in space, surrounded by a Separatist fleet, he needed to act. Obi-Wan and Cody decided to detonate the ship. Obi-Wan left a message for Grievous, but instead of gloating, he would leave a long, drawn-out message, suggesting that he would surrender at the end of all of it. Cody and Obi-Wan were able to get to their escape pods and get out of the exploding vessel. When the Venator detonated, it blew Grievous into pieces and destroyed his capital ship, while also damaging the supporting fleet, which was very soon engaged in another battle, led by a grouping of Quinlan Voss's and Aayla Secura's forces. In the following hours, Obi-Wan would notify the Council of his victory over Grievous. The Jedi knew what to do. They framed the entire situation around the deaths of Dooku and Grievous, both happening at the same time, and then blaming them as a coordinated attack that killed two lead generals of the Republic, because Palpatine knew the Jedi were onto him. The irony is, the Jedi were technically right, but for the wrong reasons. It was a coordinated attack to kill both Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. Palpatine knew, of course, where Anakin and Obi-Wan were, but the reason for the assaults were different than destroying Republic propaganda figures. It was more so about killing people close to Anakin. The Jedi had their excuse and moved on to the Senate and propped up the death of Palpatine in a quiet session. The reports released during said session wouldn't be known to the public until the war was brought to a peace treaty. Due to the nature and severity of the issue, the Republic needed to act quickly. But there were those in the room that were trying to slow the effects, all of them being corporate heads who were working for the Separatists. And with the aid of Greef Karga, a man whose people suffered due to these corporate heads, he acted quickly. The Republic rallied together and pushed for the Separatists, who lost both of its leading generals in the same day, to surrender. They did. It wasn't an easy process, but because of Duchess Satine Mandalore, the two sides had a neutral system to finalize their peace treaty on, called the Mandalore Accords. With the end of the Clone Wars coming and the Republic in need of a new leader, one man rallied people to his side. Whether they agreed with all of his politics or not, he was an inspiration. Greef Karga's influence in such a short period of time was generational. He wasn't just an inspirational speaker and motivator, but he was a warrior, a man tested by challenges, one who could go against the best of them. In his career he faced death threats, but nothing ever frightened him. Greef would make the perfect replacement for Palpatine, the literal antithesis of the foolish Sith Lord who tried to manipulate the galaxy. He would be what every politician should strive to be, and he would set the standard for what it meant to be a leader and the Chancellor for the Republic. The Jedi, on the other hand, would promote Anakin the Jedi Master for his work of excellence at the end of the war. Despite him being Ahsoka's instructor and not technically being a master yet, they believed he shouldn't have to wait. Defeating a generational duelist at the age of 21 without using the dark side was impressive in of itself. Anakin was very appreciative. He would eventually receive a seat on the High Council once one opened up, that seat becoming a lifetime or permanent one. Though despite his accomplishments, he was very apologetic to Ahsoka. He didn't mean to be overprotective of her, but once it became clear the attacks were coordinated, he didn't feel as bad, and she didn't feel as if he was being overbearing. Padme at one point or another would finally move on, picking another relationship and actually finding happiness she desired. Anakin himself wouldn't ever get involved romantically. However, like Obi-Wan, there were always cheats into the code, and he would utilize those to enjoy the ever so enticing flirty encounter. After all, once he learned some maturity, he'd be on par with Kenobi when it came to flirting. Anakin would continue his journey as a Jedi Master, taking on a few more students here and there, and cementing himself with a lifetime seat on the High Council. One of the great joys of Anakin's life would be watching the career of Greef Karga, who was able to restructure the Republic into a formidable government, which aided the Jedi too. However, the rebirth on Navarro would be Greef's proudest achievement. He turned his homeworld from a backwater scum-ridden world into a prided location in the Outer Rim. On top of that, the Outer Rim became Jedi and Republic occupied. Greef's stint would also see the corporations fall out of power inside the Senate, dissipating into nothing but corporations with no bearing on Republic operations at all. Anakin, in his late 60s, as the current Grand Master of the Jedi Order, would be at the Senate building when a statue was commissioned for the great Chancellor Greef Karga, a man who helped bring peace to the galaxy, thanks of course to the diligent work of clones and Jedi. And that, my friends, is our story. Special thanks to all of our patrons: Galvin Gaming, Tristan, Mandalore, Sowelm 1767, Darth Revan, Granddaddy Bane, Sky Guy, Penguin, Cullen Roonies, Shark Midori, RJ38, Nick, Michael Erlanger, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Weewoo 670, Annika Dank Runner, CT 7567, Toaster Oven, Oz of Oz, Darth Knox, The Eternal Padawan, Joshua Tem, Johnny DeGuin, Sansa Skeleton, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Geek Gamer, Lord Calig, Only Slayer 66, Mammoth Studios, Anakin 003, Lord Draken, 460 Star Wars, Airbus, Rex the Wolf, The Man with 3 First Names, Darkseid 46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing for supporting the channel. Smash that like button. Season 2 of the Sith Clone Wars is now over. Make sure you vote on the community section for a Season 3. I have an outline done, 10 episodes. Go check it out. Patreon's also there. Anyways, let's talk the story. So I wanted to do kind of like how Anakin is obsessive over Padme in the same kind of creepy way, and then kind of help that play into how he develops as a character without this story. I think the moment Anakin realizes he's holding himself back is when he's on the mission with Padme. So when he comes back, he learns how to be a Jedi. After said mission with no Padme involvement, I thought it'd be interesting for Palpatine to pick other people in Anakin's life to kind of target. And so that's kind of where I wanted to go with this story, leading it to Navarro. And with that said, rest in peace to Carl Weathers. He's a generational talent. Anyways, I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.